Daddy, what? Are magic spells real? This was a new phase. Just this last month, a reality phase. When he told her spiders eat bugs, she turned to her mother and asked, "Do they really?" And when Claire told her God was in the sky and all around them, she turned to her father and insisted with a sly yet eager smile, "Is he really?" Now, this phase was a reality phase. This means the author says that now the child has grown and she is curious. She wanted to know whether whatever is being told to her is right or is a myth. So, whatever her mother said, she would confirm from her father whether it is right or wrong, true or false, and whatever her father told her, she would turn to her mother and ask if it was really true. "They are real in stories," Jack answered curtly. Curtly, shortly. He said, "They are real in stories." She had made him miss a beat in the narrative. Now, by asking a question, she had broken the spontaneity of his narration, of his storytelling. The owl said, "Go through the dark woods, under the apple trees, into the swamp, over the creek." Now he continued with the story. He said that the owl said, he was telling him the way how he should reach the wizard. So he said, "Go through the dark woods, woods are forests, under the apple trees, into the swamp, over the creek. Creek is a river, small river. Swamp is a marshy land." What's a creek? A little river over the creek, and there will be the wizard's house. And that's the way Roger Skunk went. He went as he was told. He went through the dark woods, under the apple trees, and into the swamp and over the little river. And that's the year. And pretty soon he came to a little white house. And he rapped on the door. He knocked at the door. Jack rapped on the windowsill. Now, to make it appear realistic, he also knocked on the windowsill. And under the covers, Joe's tall figure clenched in an infantile thrill. And from under the covers, he could feel Joe was very tense. Her figure clenched in an infantile. She was very tense and excited. She was very thrilled that now the Roger Skunk was going to get the solution to his problem. Her thrill was childish, infantile. And then a tiny little old man came out. Tiny little old man, the dwarf or the magician, with a long white beard and a pointed blue hat, and said, "What's it? What do you want? You smell awful." The wizard's voice was one of Jack's own favorite effects. Now he added some effects to that to sound more realistic. He did it by scrunching up his face and somehow whining through his eyes. So he made a wailing sound. He crumpled his face and took out a strange sound, which felt for the interval roomy. He felt being an old man suited him. So it felt roomy, it felt strange, and what he felt is it suited him to look like an old man. "I know it," Roger Skunk said, "and all the little animals run away from me. The enormous wise owl said you could help me." Now the creature Roger Skunk, he said, "I know that I smell awful. That is why all the animals run away from me. And the enormous big wise owl had said that you could help me." Well, maybe. Come on in. Don't get too close." Now, why he said don't get too close? Because Roger Skunk was stinky. Now, inside Joe, there were all these magic things all jumbled together in a big dusty heap. Now, all the things were lying in a heap full of dust because the wizard did not have any cleaning lady, and they were full of dust and they were lying in a jumbled way, all mixed in confusion because no one had settled them. Why? Why? Because he was a wizard and a very old man. Now, to this, Joe asks why he did not have a cleaning lady. Jack said that because he was a wizard and then he was a very old wizard. He was a very old man. Will he die? Now, again, she came up with another question because he said very old. So she related with death. So she asks, will he die? To this, Jack replied, no, wizards don't die. Well, he rummaged around and found an old stick called a magic wand. Rummaged, he searched. He searched from that heap and took out a stick, which is a magic wand, and asked Roger Skunk what he wanted to smell like. And he asked Roger Skunk what he wanted to smell like. Roger thought and said, roses. Yes, good, Joe said smugly. Now, very satisfactorily, even she was happy that he said roses. She said, yes, good. Jack fixed her with a trance-like gaze and chanted in the wizard's elderly, irritable voice. Now he looked at her and he chanted some irritating words, some weird words. Abracadabra, hocus poo, Roger Skunk, how do you do? Roses, bosses, pull an ear, Roger Skunk, you never fear, bingo. He paused as a rapt expression widened out from his daughter's nostrils, forcing her ears up and her lower lip down in a wide, noiseless grin. He stopped. He stopped to see his daughter's expressions. Her eyebrows had gone up and her lip had lowered and her teeth were visible in a noiseless grin, smile, an expression in which Jack was startled to recognize his wife. He was surprised to see that look on his daughter's face, because that was the kind of look he saw on his wife's face when she was pretending to be enjoying cocktail parties. Cocktail parties are parties in which alcohol is served. So she used to pretend, she used to make that kind of a face, she had that kind of an expression when she was pretending to have fun at the parties. And all of a sudden he whispered, and suddenly he whispered, the whole inside of the wizard's house was full of the smell of roses. Roses, Roger Fish cried. And the wizard said, very cranky, that'll be 7 pennies. So he said Roger Fish instead of Roger Skunk. And the whole house of the wizard was smelling of roses, because now Roger Skunk was smelling of roses. So he said, cranky means faddist, a person who's a little crazy. He said 7 pennies. He wanted 7 pennies for this work. Daddy, what? Roger Skunk. You said Roger Fish. Yes, skunk. You said Roger Fish. Wasn't that silly? Very silly of your stupid old daddy. Where was I? Well, you know about the pennies. Now, Joe interrupted and she said that, Daddy, you have called Roger Skunk a fish. Wasn't that foolish? He says, yes, it was foolish of your stupid old daddy. And then he says, where was I? Because he was interrupted, he again forgot where he was actually. He says, okay, you know about the pennies. That is, she knew the basic structure of the story. Now the wizard will tell the creature where to find the remaining pennies and he will finally get the pennies. Say it. Now, Joe wanted to hear the whole story from her father, so she says, you say it. Okay. Roger Skunk said, but all I have is 4 pennies. And he began to cry. Roger Skunk began to cry because he did not have 7 pennies. Joe made the crying face again. Now again she made a crying face. Her lips must have drooped down, but this time without a trace of sincerity. By her expressions, you could make out that she was just pretending. She knew that the wizard was going to tell Roger Skunk where to get the remaining pennies. This annoyed Jack. Jack did not like this. Downstairs, some more furniture rumbled. Rumbled is the sound of moving furniture came. Claire should not move heavy things. She was 6 months pregnant. It would be their third. So a thought came in his mind that she's 6 months pregnant and she should not be doing this heavy work. She should not be moving heavy furniture. And this baby would be their third baby, third child. So the wizard said, "Oh, very well. Go to the end of the lane and turn around 3 times and look down the magic well, and there you will find 3 pennies." So he told Roger Skunk to go to the end of the lane. Lane is the street. There he should turn around 3 times and look down the magic well, and he will find the 3 pennies. Hurry up. So Roger Skunk went to the end of the lane and turned around 3 times, and there in the magic well were 3 pennies. So he took them back to the wizard and was very happy and ran out into the woods, and all the other little animals gathered around him because he smelled so good. And they played tag, baseball, football, basketball, lacrosse, hockey, soccer, and pickup sticks. So all the animals, creatures got around Roger Skunk. Now he was smelling of roses, and they played so many different types of games. "What's pickup sticks?" she asks. "It's a game you play with sticks." "Like the wizard's magic wand?" she asks, because the magician also had a stick, magic wand. "Kind of." And they play games and laughed all afternoon, and then it began to get dark, and they all ran home to their mummies. Now it became dark in the evening, so all the creatures ran back to their mummy.